Welcome to episode 8 of the On Deck channel. Got a good one for you today. Bunch of neat things going on in the yard. There is a update on the gas to conversion project. We're going to learn a little bit from Richard about put in a cutlass bearing and what those are and how those operate on a boat. We are going to get an update on the hardtop, and it's the hardtop final installation. I give a little update on a drone license, and among other things, we're also going to get into in for ending a line on a boat when you need to replace an old line that you have on your sailboat with something that is nice and crispy and new. So let's not delay and get into it. Yeah, I thought I would throw this in real fast. This is a boat. I'm actually not sure what boat this was make and model wise, but it's Andre, one of the co-owners of the Yacht Rigger, and one of the lead electrician guys here, Mike, checking out, doing like an assessment for prepping a boat to put lithium-ion batteries inside of it, to add some more MPPT charge controllers, so there's one MPPT per each solar panel. That way, if one panel gets a little bit shaded, it doesn't knock out power to all of the panels altogether. They're just doing an assessment on that boat. And then I walk outside and I see this boat right here that is getting a solar arch. If you want to know how to put arches on a boat, we have an entire how-to. Check in our channel or in the card above to see how those things go on a boat, because man, does that you got your dinghy davits and your solar arch and an equipment rack all there, all in one, installed on the back of your boat. Those are really cool upgrades to get. So I wanted to get my drone license for a while here. This was just a natural progression for me to do. And yeah, this is me showing up to the location to take it. Whew, all right, here in just a few minutes, I am hopping into this airport here, small little regional airport. I'm gonna be taking my Section 107 remote airman drone license. Just got done with the test. I'm sure you can see by my smile, I passed. So, yay! That's cool. Glad to have it done. Glad I passed. And on to the next thing. So let's say that you're replacing your old, crusty, nasty halyard on your boat. When you go to replace a line, you want to do a process called end for ending. And so to end for end a line, to replace, in this case, a halyard from your mainsail with a brand new, nice, fresh line, you want to take the part of the halyard that is connecting to the actual sail itself, to the head of the sail, and where the becket splice is, you want to cut that splice off, so you just have the end. So you have a flat end here for the halyard, and then on your new line that you have, the way that the Yacht Rigger likes to do it is they like to make this thing called a Flemish loop. So they get a little Flemish loop here. There's no core inside of it. It's just the cover by itself. And then it has a lock stitch here on the end. And you'll basically whip this Flemish loop. You'll put whipping line or whipping twine through the inside of this loop. And then you'll whip it into the old part of the halyard that was connecting to, in this case, the halyard main head sail. And once you have those things attached, then you'll run the tail end. All right, so I have to interrupt here for a second because I don't think that I was really clearly explaining this. It's like 3,000 degrees in Florida right now. You have a old line that's on your boat. Let's say that it's your halyard main. You have the end of the line, and then the end of the line being the part that comes out in your cockpit that spools off of your winch. That's the end. And then you have the head of your line, which is in this case connecting to the head sail. You want to take the head of the old line, the tail of the new line, and you connect those together through a whip, essentially. But once you've connected those two ends together, you go back into your cockpit, if that's where your line is leading that you're replacing, and you grab the tail of the old line, and so you're pulling that line and pulling the old line as if you were raising your head sail, and eventually the new line is going to come up over the shiv, down that mast exit, through that deck organizer, and back into that cockpit, and eventually you'll see that new line comes out entirely, and you have a nice fresh new line there installed in your boat, and you didn't have to go aloft or make it into anything complicated. If you want to know how to do the Flemish loop, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, let's cut back to Jeremiah and see him putting that splice in, or that whipping really in, as he does exactly this process on a customer's boat.
So in the end of your line, we put Flemish loops. So in the future, if you have to chase it out with a chase line or whatever, you can. You just tie the bowl in on there, and you can easily pull it out. But because we're doing a chase with your pre-existing line that doesn't have a Flemish loop, all we got to do is thread through here. And I like to go around and lock this one in place. So I just thread back through the other way, so it creates a locking hitch almost. And then from there, we go through our Flemish loop hole. Keep feeding it to the same point there. Start taping around your lashings you did there. Yeah. So you're just trying to tape that joint together so it doesn't deflect, so that as it rolls over the rollers, it doesn't want to catch anything. Because it's happened in the past where we tie this with our chase line, and the chase line will roll off the sheave into the side of it and jam. And then you got to go up the rig, figure it out from there. And then these are already pre-coiled, so that as you go, it should just pull right up, no knots, no catches.
So I thought this is cool. In my head, I call this the Save a Mast program, but you get these old masts on boats and they were using dissimilar metals of stainless going up against the aluminum where the mast base is that goes into your boat, where the mast physically connects to the boat. What is happening that we're seeing all the time on older boats is that mast is getting all corroded and it's coming apart. And you're gonna have to address that, right? You can't have the base of your mast going under all this corrosion. You can see that corrosion here. So what they're doing at the Yacht Rigger is they're going through this whole process of cutting the mast up to the point where it's healthy. It's kind of like cutting out the cancer, right? So you save the healthy tissue. In this case, you save the healthy aluminum. You cut off the old stuff. And then Brian, the leader of the fab team, is then gonna make a custom mast base for that mast to sit into. If you want to see more of that process and what that looks like, there's an entire video on that. It's short and sweet, but it lets you know if that's a need that you have for your boat. You can check that out and see what all is involved in getting the Yacht Rigger to make a new base for your mast so you can save the mast and you don't have to scrap the entire thing just because the bottom few feet or inches of your mast is totally corroded. So there's a funny stir in the office right now because there's a super rare sighting. Here it is. It was kind of stupid, but yeah, so this is the lead rigger who is in the rigging production facility, and this guy is just swaging rigging all day long. He's doing all the standing rigging, and then he's doing all the splicing on the running rigging. He's been doing this forever. It was just really funny to see him out on a boat. So I had to get a video of this and put him into this episode. It's a rare sighting. The last time I actually rode in a boat anywhere was summer camp, and we rode across the lake, and I thought I was gonna die. 4 women are gonna be rowing across the Atlantic Ocean in this rowboat. That is completely crazy. All 4 of them are gonna be on the On Deck podcast for an interview so we can get to know them a little bit. Check the link in the description below to be able to follow along and see whenever that podcast drops. But for now, I just want to get familiarized with this boat and see what the Yacht Rigger's doing to outfit the boat and make sure that it is ready to cross the Atlantic. Yeah, just to elucidate this a little bit further, this is 4 women. They're all marine biologists, and they are going in this rowboat across an ocean. It blows my mind. I cannot believe that they're going to do this. Really looking forward to following their journey, having them on the podcast. What a crazy thing. And check this boat out. It's totally awesome.
Right? 3,000 miles across the Atlantic?
Yeah,
right?
that's
Give or take?
Man.
Oh, man.
At like 3 knots.
Oh, man.
That's pretty brutal.
Sometimes backwards?
Mm-hmm.
So are there 3 ladies doing this?
4. One's going to be sleeping while 3 row.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yep. Yep. Starting from the top. Replace jack lines and lifelines. The solar panels, I'm going to get some measurements today and see if we can upgrade those. Production, and then I want to move this wind instrument because it basically permanently shades the solar panel. Electrical team needs to make them a cheat sheet for how to monitor their batteries more accurately. You seen it here yet?
I have not. Can you see it on that heads-up display on the B&G?
No.
Can you make it display there?
No, you'd have to have a servo.
Just spend a whole nother week.
One of the tiller arms from that back compartment, if you open it up, replace the yellow grab line along outside of hull. Deck and cabin organizer repair, restitch some of these. go over and just check all the stainless hardware on any stainless hardware that we see. If it's questionable, replace it. Anchor light plugs in there, yeah, and so that plug is European. We need to switch it out. Check electric and manual bilge pump operation. This, but to get all the barnacle bases off the hull.
Yeah, the reason that these 4 women, these marine biologists, are doing this is because there's several matters of environmental concern that they want to bring the public's attention to. And they're going to basically torture themselves for, I don't know, like 5 or 6 weeks crossing the Atlantic Ocean at like 3 knots, so that we'll pay attention to these things that are really important that are going on in the environment. And we're going to get into exactly what that is as we get the interview with them here later on. But wow, I'm impressed. My heart goes out to them. I'm going to cut over real fast over here to Richard and get some info on cutlass bearings and what those do. I hear that term all the time, cutlass bearing, and I think I have an idea what that is, but he gives a really good short explanation on what they are and how to replace them.
Okay, we're still working on Alley's Way, which is a 254 engine motor conversion into a fully electric dive boat for a group called Scooby Jews. And I suggested to them to put in a packless sealing system on the shaft and not use the standard packing system, which is going to create drag. And these are really great systems. I put them on boats before. They're on the inside, the shaft goes through them, and then this ring gets slid on the shaft and then locked down. And then all there is to keep the water out is a little bit of pressure up against this. And so they don't have to change the packing. There's no packing involved. Once this gets compressed to a certain amount per the instructions, it won't leak. Every once in a while they can burp it and let a little air in it, but you don't have to do that. And we're going to talk about cutlass bearings next. A cutlass bearing is used wherever a shaft has to go through a strut or through a shaft log hole inside the boat. There's usually a cutlass bearing. And the reason for that is, for one thing, you can't have metal on metal, so you have to have some type of interface that allows the shaft to turn, but also keeps it in place from vibrating. So this is a brand new one. And then the length of the cutlass bearing is important too. So this one was a 5-inch. So you just select that, you order that, and then this is what you're going to replace it with. Now the problem with cutlass bearings is they're very hard to get out. So as you can see, this one was beat up to get it out of the strut here. What I usually do is I get a heavy duty piece of aluminum, same OD as the cutlass bearing. So when you pushing it out, you're just pushing on the cutlass bearing and you're not pushing on the strut. I use a little anti-seize so that it doesn't lock in, so if you ever have to change it again, you can get it out. And what I do is I put the cutlass bearing in place, then I take a marker through the hole, put a little dimple on it, and then I take a small drill and just drill a little dimple in it so that when this set screw drops in, it locks in really well and it won't come out. Now the set screws I would use Loctite on. The reason why it has ridges in it is because water has to go around the shaft as it's operating, or else it would overheat. So it's very important that it has these shafts. And when you're putting in a cutlass bearing, you want to put it, you can see the different grooves. You do not want to put a groove all the way down at the 6 o'clock position. You want to turn it a little bit so the flat edge is at the 6 o'clock position. If you don't, it's going to cause premature wear. So you definitely don't want to put it where a groove is at the 6 o'clock position. And that's kind of it.
All right, so this is it. You guys have been watching update after update on this hard top getting put onto the Swift trawler. And so I make my way onto the boat, give myself a brief little tour and overview of the condition that it is in. I stumble upon a electrical out there, Mike, working down there in a really good-looking engine room. And then I come up here to the fly bridge and talk to Frank Chitwood about what he's doing on the install. I kind of eyeball some of it and see where its progress is at. And then, man, he gives us an update and closes us out on my following this project.
So yesterday we craned the hardtop into place, double checked it, made sure it was good. We ended up adjusting it another inch at the front, which is, very tiny amount at the back. And then we sunk in about 8 bolts back there. So I'm putting those legs in now. What they consist of is a foot like this, This foot is going into the roof. And what I do is I put CT1, which is kind of like our preferred version of 4200. I'll put that around all the holes, even though this is going on the ceiling, so it shouldn't have any water. We'll still do that to seal it nice. Once I have all 4 of those in, then I can take down this 2x4 structure that we have that's holding it at the right height while I'm dialing it in. So yeah, it's just a process of CT1 on this. I put Tef gel on the bolts. You could also use Lanacoat just to make sure there's no corrosion, because the foot is aluminum and the bolts are stainless. And the structure inside of here is also aluminum. So we'll have stainless going into aluminum. So we're just gonna put that on there. Looking real nice.
So having gotten this done to this point, is there anything that was like a particular challenge that stands out just on the installation side?
I think the biggest challenge with really any kind of hardtop or arch is alignment. Boats are never square. They're never even. And so you really have to use your visual eye or your eye level to make things right. You know, is it right like this, fore and aft, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll take a tape measure to start to position it. But the reality is you have to have somebody off the boat, on the boat, below, all kinds of different angles looking at it and saying, yeah, that looks right. So there was a lot of different things that we did to make sure that it came out just right. Now, if you take a tape measure to certain parts, you might find, oh, well, this looks half an inch off. But if you look at it from afar or up close, it looks right. You know, so it's all about accounting for that. And that really just takes time. But it also takes a couple extra bodies, because you have to have people in different places to do that. Yeah.
Is there anything that someone should keep in mind if they're looking at having something like this done to their boat, getting a hardtop put on like this?
I guess if you're going to put on a hardtop, you know, consider the overall size. You want it to look nice with the boat. You want to take into account, if you're going to have canvas, then some kind of enclosure, you need to take that into account. This customer wasn't going to have an enclosure, so we put these legs on the outside of this frame. But for example, if you were going to have an enclosure, you'd want to bring these legs inside. That way you're not having a break in the enclosure right there. You want to consider what's going to go on top. You know, obviously a lot of people are going to put solar. So we really maxed out the solar on this, but we also had to take into account all of the instruments that are up there as well. TV antennas, radar antennas, anchor lights, all this stuff. And then now we have another consideration, which is, what is the air draft of this boat now? Is he going to still be able to get under all the bridges without having to wait for them to open? So we're even rigging up something so that the radar can tilt down and lower his air draft so he can get under bridges still. And so that's a factor if you live in an area where you're going to go under a lot of bridges. I think also just like the scale of it, you know, like if you're going to get one this big, you need to have a professional. I mean, we had to lift this thing up with a crane. Even when it had no solar panels on it, it still took 8 guys to pick up. If you're doing something on like a small center console boat, yeah, you can probably do it just you and your friends. But when you get to this scale, you really need to call some professionals, because even for us, it still takes. This is about a 100-hour job to do this, which is insane. That's pretty big.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's so funny. There's always just so much more than meets the eye.
Yeah. It's a lot of fine details. Fine details. Even just one of these legs, to put in one of these legs, probably takes 2 hours. But it's freaking perfect if you look at it. I mean, like the caulking, everything is just perfect. And so there's just 4 of those legs alone. You're looking at almost 10 hours just to do that.
And what do you think is the biggest quality of life improvement adding something like this?
Oh, adding this hardtop like completely transformed this boat. I mean, not only does it look different from the water and look different from up here, but like the shade that you get is incredible. I mean, I was up here doing gel coat work before we put the hardtop up here, and it was like one of the toughest days I've had here. Like I was like dying. Like I was going inside and everybody was like, you need to take a break. And it was just so hot. But then the moment we craned this hardtop up here, it was instantly like, wow, this is awesome. I could sit up here all day because it's just, you got a nice breeze, but no sun. And it has completely changed the vibe of this boat. The owner's gonna absolutely love it.
Once again, guys, thank you for watching. Check in the description below for links that the Yacht Riggers, products that the Yacht Riggers like to use around the yard. And thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you guys next time on the On Deck channel. Sailor Smurf out.